let's do it. Just play it slowly. We need somebody to help him. Somebody passed out right here. Somebody passed out right here. Hold on, don't touch him, don't touch him. Everybody just back up.
It's hard to forget the November AstroWorld festival that turned deadly. 10 attendees lost their lives, and we know those affiliated with the festival were hit with lawsuits, including Live Nation, rapper Travis Scott, as well as other entities. But people still have so many questions that need answers. And now, in the latest update, we're learning that the FBI is jumping into the investigation. The Houston Police Department tweeting this, quote, "Detectives have already viewed countless hours of video evidence as part of our ongoing investigation into the AstroWorld event to ensure that we have captured all evidence for a complete investigation. We have partnered with the FBI for additional technical assistance. The FBI has created a website where the public can upload any photos of video taken at the concert venue." So, what can we expect moving forward? Here to help us break it all down is criminal defense attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Bob Bianchi. Bob, thank you so much for joining me. So, Bob, as you know, the lawsuits are mounting. There's still so many questions that haven't been answered. And what does this mean, legally speaking, now that the FBI is involved and has created this website where people can upload their own footage?
Stephanie, this has always been interesting for me from a prosecutorial point of view about how this case has been investigated. Initially, we were given reports, and again, it's only reports that we have, that the Houston Police Department was handling it and that they didn't need an outside agency to assist. Now we're hearing the FBI is involved in it and only assisting with technical aspects of it, that is the collection of video. So there's nothing unusual as a local law enforcement agency by eventually reaching out to a wider department that may have more technical skill, more financial capability in order to help the case. I just would have expected it would have been done sooner than later. Nevertheless, as far as I would be concerned as a prosecutor, the more data, the more video, the more information I get, the better able I am to paint a picture as to whether or not criminal charges should be filed, not filed, and certainly it's going to help the civil cases that have already been filed.
Yeah, and then just to be clear, so far all the deaths were ruled accidental, but the question here is, could this have been prevented? And when you go through all the footage and you hear the stories, you wonder why there weren't other precautions or other measures put in place to prevent something like this from happening.
Stephanie, I did a little reading on some statistics here. A whopping 528 police officers were off duty at that scene providing security to supplement the 755 security people that were there. That's an amazing complement of law enforcement and security assets. Now, there's also been a lot of information about they weren't given the proper ingress and egress, whether it should have stopped earlier or not stopped earlier. These are all questions that law enforcement is going to look at. And keep in mind, it's funny, I just got off a phone call and discussing a case that I currently have as a criminal defense lawyer, that not all accidents and bad, tragic accidents are necessarily crimes. They have to rise to the level, such incompetence that it was practically certain that a death would result. And that's a pretty high bar for prosecutors to meet. The civil standard is much less. It's by a preponderance of the evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's just more likely than not that their negligence caused these injuries. That, I think, is a no-brainer. The real question here is going to be whether or not there's enough evidence to show that there was a reasonable probability of death and criminal charges being filed. Right now, we just don't know enough facts. But I will say this. They did have security. They did have police. They did go to the chief of police before the concert and have meetings with their security and the police. And so the police have got a lot of answering, in my mind, to do about what happened here.
And legally speaking, obviously we mentioned a lot of names of people being sued. Who do you think holds the most responsibility based on what we've seen so far?
The promoters. I mean, the fact is they are the artists. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Alec Baldwin, a little bit. I mean, we need to know more facts, of course, with each of these things. But the artist is there to perform. They've got earpieces in, producers are speaking to, you know this, Stephanie, how difficult it is even doing the job that we do. And they got lights blinding in their face. Now, at one point, he actually did stop the concert when he saw at least an individual thing. So the prosecutors being able to prove that the performer knew or should have known, when the responsibility is really with the promoters to be making sure that there's safety and security. That's their world. That's their job, Stephanie.
And then, you know, a lot of us watch these videos, and we saw Travis Scott, and you said he did stop for a brief moment, but then he did continue. And so, you know, I'm disgusted by what I saw. But that being said, as you pointed out, they have a security team, they have producers, they have everything else. And so while a lot of us are critical of Travis Scott and his reaction to what happened, you know, part of me is like, well, how responsible is he? If he's just there to do a show, it seems like it would be the responsibility of those who are paid to do their job to ensure that the show goes on properly.
Exactly, exactly. And look, the only way you'll ever tie him into it, and again, prosecutors don't look at the, do we like a person or don't we like a person? It's whether if he knew or he should have known, or if he created or lent to, or like say, for example, he were up there like, keep on coming, keep on, you know, going forward. Well, that would be a different story because he's actively participating in it. So absent that kind of evidence, Stephanie, I agree with you completely. It falls upon the people who are hired and paid to do that job.
Yeah. And then when it comes to future performances, it looks like Live Nation and so on will continue on. But it looks like they're probably going to have to change some things in the future to protect themselves as these lawsuits go on.
You know, I don't know if much is going to change, Stephanie. I mean, you know, lawyers kind of pride themselves on the fact that, you know, people hate lawsuits, but lawsuits have what given us the greatest country in the world in terms of safe products and safe consumer thing. You know, because if you leave it just the business to do whatever it is that they want, they're going to go for the dollar as opposed to necessarily safety. And I know that there's a balance there, but whether this is going to substantially change things, well, if they find errors, certainly we'll learn from those errors. But Stephanie, how many more tragic accidents have to happen at concerts like this? I mean, it just seems like nobody really does learn the lesson, or if they do, it's really not an environment that's controllable. Personally, yours truly, you're not going to find me at a concert with that many people, period, end of story, because I know well enough to know, one, I'm too old, paunchy, and balding to be at something like that. But moreover, from the standpoint of the law, I know from a law enforcement perspective, there's really not much. You could have all the greatest plans in the world, but, you know, people act like idiots. And when they do, people get hurt. You can't stop idiosity, Stephanie.
Definitely. And you definitely won't see me at a concert
by the way,
like
I
that
don't mean
either.
to say the victims are idiots. I'm just saying that when a small group can cause a large problem.
No, I hear you. And there were so many people there, and there's so many things that could have gone wrong. And also, too, there was a lot of young people there without parental supervision. And so you'll go through these videos, and you're like, how does this happen? Parents are letting their kids go there. They're so young. And things happen that a lot of people wouldn't even think about. This like crowd surge and the amount of people there and the deaths, that's not something that you would imagine happening at a concert. So I think this is opening up the eyes for many parents out there who were maybe thinking about letting their kids go to a concert like this. Well, Bob, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.